Let's get to the papers, guys.
Alrighty.
So where do we start from? Let's start from, I think, the Nigerian Tribune.
There you go.
I want to be sure that the date is right. Okay. Ibas under fire over appointment of LG administrators. PDP accuses NAS of abdicating oversight role on administrator. Ibas in order. Tinubu gave him blanket check. Okori. Sometimes when I hear some of these guys talk, I'm asking myself, do we really understand what do you mean by Tinubu gave him blanket check? What does that mean in English, guys? We run
well, you can write anything on the check.
It's not
that
possible.
would be, you can write any regulation.
So for context, so that's what the Nigerian Tribune is running with. The brief of the president, we are watching closely as journalists as well and as everybody what is going on in Rivera State. So as Kaido was saying yesterday, we're wondering where some of this brief is coming from, removing or suspending MDA's heads and now the chairman and members of the Electoral Commission, local government administrators. We really don't know where Mr. Ibas, the Vice Admiral, is taking his powers from, because we know that certain action of his would have to revert to the National Assembly because of the critical situation the state has found itself. We know there's a state of emergency and the constitutional structures of elected leaders like the governor, deputy, and House of Assembly members have now been officially suspended, have been issued contending on whether it's constitutional or not and all of that, because when we look through the laws, we can keep saying we didn't find it, but the Supreme Court will decide that. But as it stands now, a lot of people are saying the Army General, sorry, the Military General is going beyond this brief. And this is giving credence to the permutation around the politics of the state of emergency. Because initially, it was just to manage the affairs of the state. Removing the people, if he had left the people that were there to run the affairs of the state, would it have affected anything he's doing in any shape or form? So I do not know where Vice Admiral Ibas is taking his powers from, who is oversighting him and all of this. This is why we scream and shout at that. When you tamper with constitutional structure, the tendency for abuse of power is very, very possible, because these are human beings. But guys, this is what we found ourselves, and it's very worrying to see this development.
Jeffrey, I'd like to ask, you know, following these turn of events, would he be presenting these policies before the National Assembly for approval? And that would be, i.e., the presentation of a new budget for Rivera State, and these latest turn of events, which would be an appointment of sole administrators and you know, what's the other regulation, appointing officials for ASIC?
So the two answers I have is, the Constitution is very clear on who can present a state budget. So perhaps because it is a state of emergency, maybe the lawyers will help out here. It is the governor that will present a state budget to the State Assembly. But in this case, since all of them are ineffective in that sense of suspension, expected that he will go and present it to the National Assembly, who will look at all of this and bring it back. But the Constitution says it is the governor. And the Constitution in Chapter 1, subsection 2, talks about how Nigeria should be governed, which is why we are debating that there's no such thing as sole administrator and the whole of the Constitution. But the issue of the members of the Independent Commission as well, I think it also has to revert to the National Assembly, because they were supposed to go before the State Assembly. So anything that's supposed to naturally go to the State Assembly would now be carried out by the National Assembly in that sense. So all of this is the conundrum we've all found ourselves as far as Rivers politics is concerned. I think I've commented on Rivers politics, and my position is quite clear. The destiny of the Rivers people is in their own hands now, whatever they want to do. But I look at, when you look at the president's speech, Kayode, you look at the president's statement, his brief was very, very clear. Yeah. And this looks like Mr. Ibas, the Vice Admiral, is clearly going beyond his brief. So it is reckless for anybody who made that statement to say, Ibas in order, Tinubu gave him a blanket check. Okori, I don't know which Okori is this, but that's a reckless statement in my view.
Well, so it looks like this is the sixth alteration of the Nigerian constitution, because like we're writing the law as we move, just making new provisions, and at this rate, there is no limit. And that's the challenge with where we're at. There's no limit. Tomorrow can come, and there's something else happening, which is not contained in the constitution as we have it right now. But
and you know, sometimes when there is no specificity on what certain executives cannot do, it leaves room for ambiguity and, you know, the abuse of powers that we see time and again. Somebody was saying just yesterday, you know, that this particular action was not gazetted in what the mandates that the president, you know, gave the sole administrator upon appointment. So we ask, where is this in law? In fact, where is the appointment of a sole administrator and the state of emergency, by extension, in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Well, Kayode, sorry, before you go, I want to read something. You know, you read it that the administrator would not make any new laws. He will, however, be free to formulate regulations, regulations as may be found necessary to do his job. But such regulations will now be, you know, reverted to FEC, which was now national. Regulations. I haven't seen any regulation from this administrator. All I've seen is suspension of people, appointing of people, and anyway, Kayode.
as we said, it's like we're writing a new law at this point, without the approval of the National Assembly. But take a look at this Nigeria. That's the next paper we're looking at this morning. This Nigeria is leading with insecurity. I must just give you a heads up. This might jar you a bit. Tackle poverty. Stop over-scrutinizing defense budgets. At Inter-Parliamentary Union meeting, Nigerian Senator Ibrahim warns insecurity may rise if countries fail to increase defense spending, address rising poverty. So basically saying, let's try to be kinetic and non-kinetic, but let's also raise the kinetic budget and not look at it too much. But you know, when something lacks oversight, when it lacks monitoring or scrutiny, anything can happen. Even right now, with this scrutiny in quote, a lot of things are happening. I mean, what happens to the security votes? There have been calls for probing or some sort of scrutiny, yes, of our defense spending. But hey, you say it's national security, so don't look there. So,
and we might ask, where is the justification for the billions of dollars that have been spent on national security in the last decade plus?
Point exactly.
Days ago, 50 persons were killed on the plateau. And what people are saying continuously over the years is carnage, nothing short of genocidal. Go to Benue State as well, time and again. In fact, some of the killings from Benue go unreported. So where is the, the justification for the spending on, for the increased continually budget to security? Those are very big questions that must be asked. We recall also former Vice President in the last administration had called for the scrutiny of the procurement aspect of our national budget. So when we spend billions of dollars on those equipment that are touted to be game changers in the fight against insecurity, why does very little change in reining in on insurgency, banditry in Nigeria's northwest, north central, and there is an encroachment moving further down into the south as far as security concerns are concerned? Those are a lot for the managers of our security to reflect on.
Well, was the next paper? Which one are you taking?
Which will be Blueprint newspaper this morning. And take a look at the headline. Embrace citizen-centric leadership, Buhari tells APC governors. And that's quite interesting. He said in this rider, I left office with some physical assets gotten... Same physical assets gotten before my mandate, and that's ascribed to former president. Of course, this is an interesting talking point coming through from the former president, and we're just reviewing an aspect of his administration now, and there is, very little progress report as far as that is concerned. So
which of them?
And that will be security. So everything has to be citizen-centric. If this is a feedback that we can give the former president. So where his economic policy is citizen-centric, was security citizen-centric as far as his administration is concerned. Social investment, was it citizen-centric? There is a question mark even placed by this administration on the management of social investment during the former administration, as seen in the FCC probing, some officials under his own government. So if this is feedback, then it's a lot for the former vice president to reflect on. But there are other stories on the front page of Blueprint newspaper this morning. Relief as FEC orders full implementation of Naira for crude deal. And there are two riders there. Says process will end Nigeria's dependence on forex for petroleum, and SEMA urges support for Dangote refinery. And Kaidi and Jeffrey, this was good news coming through from yesterday. My question is, will there be a deep reduction in the pump price of petrol? Particularly because there's also reports about the reduction of the price of crude barrel per barrel from the international community, coming down to about $69 per barrel from a few days ago. So questions through to the new management of the NNPCL and, of course, Dangote refinery. We hope for bigger prospects in the coming days.
There's a lot to talk about. We'll start with the tariff. We'll get to the controversial issues around Labour Party and many others. But we'll take a quick break. I'll get to talk with the DG of Man right here on the program. Join us again.